Well, hello again, and another very warm welcome back to your favourite internet vintage motocross channel, Classic Dirt Bike TV, and of course a very special mention once again to all the brand new subscribers who have signed up to my channel since my last posting. It's nice to know that there are still more people out there who appreciate these old vintage race bikes. Now, as we head towards the end of the racing season here in the UK, we still have one more event still to cover, and that will be, of course, the Scottish Classic Motorcycle Racing Club's Round 5 event, which will be held at Whitekirk in East Linton near Edinburgh next weekend. Now, you will be able to see all the bikes from the paddock at that event, and of course all the racing action on the track soon after. So I do hope you'll retune to take a look at that. Also, thanks to all the fans of Classic Dirt Bike TV that I've met at various motocross racing events over the course of the 2021 season, and I hope you enjoyed having a little chat with me about Classic Dirt Bike TV, and of course having your own selfie taken at the track as well. So thanks to each and every one of my Classic Dirt Bike TV fans who have taken the time to have a chat during this year's championships. Okay, we're going to go straight into another race bike this time, and this of course is a Scottish Twinshock rider. This is Rick Caldwell's lovely JBR 500 Honda. Now, this rather nice looking Twinshocker is actually a bike that Rick Caldwell purchased from another Scottish Twinshock racer some while ago, although since Rick bought the machine, he's stripped the bike completely to give it a bit of a freshen up and replace some of the old worn out parts that were fitted to the bike. Now, Rick told me that basically every part on this bike was replaced with brand new components, and the only things that weren't touched during the refurbishment were the bike's frame and motor. Now, as we begin with the bike's frame, as you know, these very high quality chrome plated chassis are all built by Mark Janik at Mojo Motorbikes, and Mark constructs these beautifully sculpted JBR Honda frames exclusively for Rod Spry Engineering, who of course built these JBR Hondas originally. Now, Mark of course used to work for Matisse way back in the day, and it's said that Mark himself built over 400 Matisse frames during his 11 years at the company, until he later formed Mojo Motorbikes, where he now builds these JBR chassis alongside many other frames for various other off-road race bikes. Now, these JBR Honda racers use top quality components, and when you order one of these John Banks replica Hondas from Rod Spry, you know that you're going to get a quality piece of kit to use as a race bike. Now, original John Banks racers were fitted with a BSA B50 engine, and I think they also used wheels and forks from BSA, and some of the other early JBRs also used Shenny frames. But it was some time later that the aforementioned Rod Spry, who quite liked this newer version of the JBR with the Honda 4-stroke motor that were at that time being built by CCM. So Rod then decided to build an initial run of around a dozen bikes using the Mark Janik frame and that superb Honda XL500 engine. But of course that was a way back in the day, and I think to date Rod's built many more of these fantastic looking Twinshockers since then. Now, these JBR Twinshockers, as you know, use the Honda XL500 motor, which are just such a fantastic power plant for enduro or motocross racing. Now, they're a single cylinder engine with a twin port exhaust cylinder head, and as you'd expect, these motors would not be your standard 500cc capacity, as I think usually these undergo rebores and some tuning to bring them out to around the 520cc mark, although there are companies like Horsepower Factory who can do even more exotic things on these XL 4-stroke motors. Now, because this is a Rod Spry built machine, you can see here that Rod's put his own mark on this CNC machined rocker cover just to promote his Rod Spry engineering company. Now again, as I remember, these XL500 engines had a 5-speed gearbox, and more often than not the standard clutches would also be upgraded with heavier springs and stronger plates just to cope with any increase in horsepower. Although in terms of their ruggedness and reliability, these Honda 4-banger motors are generally indestructible, and you'd have to be pretty ham-fisted or some kind of motorcycle hooligan to do any damage to this fantastic Honda power plant. Now, at the front end of our JBR, it's fitted with a pair of conventional Italian-made Marzocchi forks, which once again are pretty good quality, but you can have your particular JBR fitted with whatever suspension system that takes your fancy. Although I have to say that these Marzocchis are pretty good, and there is some scope for adjustment to the damping by adding or removing air from the Schrader valves fitted to the top of each fork leg. Now, once again at the bike's rear end, nothing but the best fitted to these JBRs, and Rick's machine here has a pair of top quality Swedish made piggyback Öhlins shocks. Now, as you know, these are not cheap, and of course cheaper brands are available for these bikes, but if you're a top rider and you're quite serious about your bike's suspension, then you'll want the very best that money can buy, and these Öhlins units are certainly up there with the best in the business. Now, of course, the other good thing about these Öhlins Twinshocks are they're all totally rebuildable with regards servicing and repairs, and they can also be tuned to the particular rider's weight and riding style. Now, these SM Pro Platinum wheels are a pair of replacements from the bike's originals, and these have been relaced with brand new heavy duty spokes before being refitted onto these refurbished Honda hubs. But you have to say that these Mark Janik frames and their swing arms are really just works of art in their own right, although I still can't get my head round what the fascination is with plating these frames in chrome, because let's face it, it's not a road bike that we want to look at each time we take it out for a spin. These are dirt bikes at the end of the day, and I can only think that the chrome plating is a cosmetic addition to make the bikes nicer to look at. But I'm not knocking it here as such. I still think that a decent colour of paint would be a much more practical use on a motocross bike. Now, as I said previously, these XL500 engines were a single cylinder, but they had that quite unique twin-port exhaust cylinder head with these two header pipes that ran down either side of the bike. Now, of course, these in turn were then linked to these two exhaust tailpipes, which were bolted underneath the seat, and there's quite a decent bark that comes out of those twin pipes when that big 500 motor gets fired up. But then again, this was quite an easy way for a following rider to identify what kind of bike you were chasing on the track, because when you caught a glimpse of these two puppies sticking out the back, you knew straight away that you were behind a 4-banger JBR. Now once again an alloy fuel tank on this particular JBR Honda, and this one of Rick's is just presented in its bare alloy configuration, but of course normally when you buy a new JBR from Rod Spry it would come fully painted in black with the period correct JBR logos on the side, although I still think that this polished alloy look it still adds to that feel of a retro Twinshocker from back in the day. Now when Rick had the bike stripped down, he took the opportunity to change the old worn out levers and cables, and he went ahead and then replaced them with newer, better quality items. Now these fancy looking levers are all made by Zeta Racing in Japan, and they supply all manner of motorcycle accessories, and these particular levers are allegedly unbreakable and are designed to fold forward if the lever hits an obstacle, but of course I've never used them myself so I can't really comment on their claims, but it looks like they are made from very good quality CNC alloy. Now once again, and as you'd expect, Rick also replaced all the bike's control cables and grips, and went ahead and fitted a decent quality throttle gasser while he was at it, just to help control the horses from that Honda 4-stroke motor. Although in terms of a 4-stroke racer, these John Banks replicas do make a great Twinshock racer, although because of the high quality parts that go into making the bike, as you'd expect, they are not the cheapest machine to buy. So if you fancy adding one of these to your dirt bike collection someday, then it's probably best just to sell your house first, or maybe wait until you win the lottery. Although if you're one of those minorities that have a spare wad of cash lying around in a cupboard at home, then maybe you could just be able to put down a deposit on your very own JBR Honda. But since Rod Spry built his initial run of about a baker's dozen of these JBR Hondas back in 2012, he's been inundated with customers and a very high demand for these Twinshock racers, and even here in 2021, as far as I'm aware, he's still producing these bikes for motocross racers to enjoy. Although at the end of the day you still have to admit that this is another great looking bike, this JBR of Rick Caldwell's, and although of course it's not in its original livery, but nevertheless it's still a Twinshock cracker, and we'll be taking a look at another of Rick's race bikes in a future video here on my channel when we check out his fantastic looking Curtis Honda. Well, there you have it. I do hope you've enjoyed that quite brief look around Rick Caldwell's very nice JBR 500 Honda Twinshocker. Now we will of course be featuring another fantastic looking bike of Rick's in a future video here on my channel, so make sure if you haven't already done it, please subscribe to my channel in order that you don't miss out on any future videos that I post. Now, as I said earlier, there's only one more racing event left here in Scotland to cover, and that will of course be the Scottish Classic Motorcycle Racing Club's Round 5 event, which of course is to be held at Mary Lee's farm in Whitekirk in East Linton near Edinburgh next weekend. So you can see all of the bikes from the paddock in that event, and of course straight after you will then see all the bikes in action on the racetrack, and that will be our final race event to cover in 2021. So if you haven't already done it, I do hope you will subscribe in order that you don't miss out on future videos here on my channel. But until then, of course, as I said, everybody continue to be safe and well riding those old vintage race bikes until we all get together once again to talk about more vintage iron right here on Classic Dirt Bike TV.